wanted to talk about the components of the torch tool and a couple of things that you need to check if you decide you're going to try to light one of these things. Again, you got to use extreme caution with these because they do use fuel. But a couple of things that I noticed about it is once you're taking it apart, and I'll do that here real quick. The thing is very basic in the design. So you have the control valve, which is nothing more than a threaded piece of rod with a tip that closes off the orifice. So you can see what this thing looks like. Get the focus. And what I decided to do is put a little anti-seize lubricant on the threads here to keep it from getting stuck, because it was kind of hard to get off originally. And then another thing is in this sleeve here that cinches this bolt into place, there's a leather washer. So and there's a little piece of leather. You want to make sure that the leather is lubricated. So again, little motor oil will do that trick for you. So that's one of the pieces. And then another couple of things is you want to check to make sure that there's nothing obstructing these passages that are in here. There's another one back here. So you got two of these guys, one on the top, one on the bottom, on the side. What you want to do is you want to check to make sure. I'm not sure if you guys can catch this on camera, but let's see if it'll catch it in camera. Maybe not. Well, all the way at the end of this little tunnel here, the end of this top tunnel, there's a tiny little pin. You might be able to see it from this side. See that tiny little pinhole in there? That little hole cannot be obstructed. So you have to make sure that once you back that control knob with the rod out of there, that you can see daylight through there. If you can see daylight, there's a pretty good chance that this thing might work for you. Another couple things you can do is you can run this little wire deal down in there to make sure there's nothing obstructing this. So this thing goes in this far, so I know it makes it all the way to the end without any obstruction. And then down here the same thing. So you push this down here to make sure that it goes all the way down into these orifices and there's nothing plugging these things up. So I'm going to go ahead and get a larger crescent wrench so I can show you what's inside of this deal. All right, the next part is the plunger. So for this, you're going to need a big crescent wrench. And you're going to pull this cylinder out. Now this is the little plunger part. And here what you got is a rod, spring. The rod end has a washer that's soldered onto it. So you got the rod, the spring, and then the little washer that's part of this rod. You got it threaded in with a nut, and then what this little piece is here is this is simply a little like a leather washer. And what this does is it's what creates the pressure to push the air that you're pumping into the body of this torch. As you pull up, the leather will flex down, allowing air that comes in through this top hole of this cap, which is loose, to get down underneath this washer. And then on the downstroke, the washer will tighten up against the inside of this shaft, keeping the pressure of the air that was drawn in toward the bottom. And then as you push it down, what will happen is there's a little spring. There's a little spring in here. You can kind of see it maybe. There's a little spring in here with another little shaft, and then another little leather washer on this side, which seals the hole when there is no pressure in this chamber. And what you can do to test it to make sure that it's working is, what I did is I just took a little piece of fence wire, made myself a little pin, and then you could put it down into this cylinder. Let's see if I can locate the center here. And to test it, all you have to do is, see, so I got it down inside the little cylinder, and to test it, all you have to do is push it. So if I push it, see, I'm going to push it in. You see the little pin come down. That's how you can test to make sure that it's moving and it's lubricated and it's going to work. When I first took this apart, this piece did not move. It was seized in there, and there was no way that it was going to be able to push air down into that cylinder, into the body of the torch. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and reassemble this. So here you got the little washer with the spring in the shaft. So you want to just gently put that in there. Screw your cap down. And this cap doesn't have a seal or anything on the end of it, but the larger cap does. So if you look in there, again in there, there's another piece of leather that's in there that creates the seal. And how you can test this is, see if I can get it to focus. So as I'm going to pump it, and you're going to see the little pin come out. You see that? Let's see if it'll catch it on video. Watch the end of the little shaft. You know, it's real fast, but you can feel the air come out. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and thread this back in after we fill it. First thing you want to do is put these screws back. I'm gonna try to light it today, guys. So we'll see if this thing's gonna work. You tighten them down. It's a good idea to put some anti-seize lubricant on these threads to make sure that you're gonna be able to get it out later if you need to. Go ahead and tighten this down. Okay, make sure your valve is all the way closed. All right, guys, I'm gonna grab some gasoline and fuel it up, and then we'll go ahead and light the bowl to get it warmed up. The way this thing works is, if you look at the design of this thing here. So on this side you have this small hole down here, and after you put the fuel in and you start to pump it up to develop pressure inside the little tank, once you open this valve slightly, fuel is going to accumulate in the bottom portion of this nozzle, and it's going to drip out this hole down into this bowl. So the position of the gun will be laying down, sitting down on its base. It's already going to be pressurized because you would have pumped it up. Open the valve a little bit. It's going to pool the fuel down here on the bottom part of the nozzle. It's going to drip out this little hole I'm going to drip out this little hole. It's kind of hard to see it. There it is right there. It's going to drip out this little hole and then down into this bowl. And then once the bowl has a little fuel in it, what you're going to do is you're going to then close off the valve, light the bowl, and then the bowl is going to heat up the torch head. And then once it gets to a certain temperature, when you go ahead and you open the valve again, it's going to gasify the fuel that's coming up. So instead of it coming out like a flamethrower, it's gonna become a gas just because of the temperature of the torch head. I'll go ahead and put the fuel in it, and we'll light it and see if we can get this thing to work. All right, guys, I got it about halfway filled with fuel, and this is just plain gasoline. You can also use camp stove fuel. Whenever you're working with gasoline, be very careful. There's you got to wear safety glasses. I would recommend wearing gloves, fire-resistant material. Make sure you got a hose close by because this could be very dangerous. Go ahead and close it up. So you're going to put your pump assembly back in. Screw it down. Give it a little tighten. So this will compress that leather washer down there, making sure that it's going to be leak proof. And then I'm going to go ahead and relocate this to the ground so that we can pump it up, and I'll show you guys how to light the bowl. Alright guys, so I lit the bowl, and now I'm just waiting for it the head to heat up enough to where I can go ahead and open the valve and let some of the gas out. Because right now if I open the valve, it'll just come out in a liquid form, but as it heats up that head, it'll start to boil the fuel that's up in that shaft. And then when I open it again, once it reaches a certain temperature, it should come out as a gas. One thing that's important is that you tighten up this collar over here sufficiently so that when you're opening this shaft here, fuel is not dripping back onto the shaft. That you don't want that. All right, so there it is on. So as that head continues to heat up, I'm going to go ahead and pump it up some more. All right, upon the first test of this cleaned up blowtorch, I discovered that it wasn't pumping very well, and the reason is, let me show you. So inside of this little pumping mechanism, there's a shaft with a spring, and then if you see here at the end, so this is a leather washer, and in this particular model it's a 3/8 is what you're going to need to get it off. So just, and it's really tight, so you might have to hold it with a vice grip. What I recommend is to use a piece of rubber tubing to protect the shaft from getting all marred up. You gotta pay attention to this because this has a little groove cut into it. See that groove on the bottom? So that groove has to face the washer. And let's take this off. It's a washer. All right, so it's a metal washer. We'll put this back on here for now. And what needs to be replaced is this piece right here. So if you can see, it has it's got a crack. So this is cracked. So we need to replace this. All right, what I plan to do is use this this belt. It's a leather belt, and we're going to use this to make this material here to shape into this thing. So let me go ahead and change up the workbench here and show you how I'm going to do this. All right, the first thing that we need to do is we need to measure to see how thick the wall of this washer is. So as I'm looking here, it looks like it's just over 1/16 of an inch. See it there? This belt is this belt is thicker than the material that the washer is made out of. So what we're going to have to do is make this piece of leather thinner, and what I plan to use to do that is some coarse sandpaper. So let's get that. So here's a very coarse sandpaper. And then a block. Right. So that's just about the thickness of that washer. So we're gonna go with this the way it is right now. I'm not gonna make it any thinner or anything. All right. Next thing we got to do is make a round shape here. So for our pattern, so I'm going to use this. Here's our round shape, and I'm going to cut the leather with some shears. So the next thing we got to do is we have to create a way that we're going to be able to push this down into this shape. So we have to manipulate this piece of leather to become this shape. What we're going to use to do that is, so we're going to need a drill bit with a paddle bit. In this case, it's 5/8. And we're going to drill a hole with it. Okay. So we're going to soak this in water until it gets a little bit more pliable. And once it's more pliable, we're going to put it on here, on this hole, and we're going to drive it down. So I've already soaked this in water. It's pretty pliable right now. And the idea is we're going to put it on top of this mark, and we're going to force it down. I'm going to use the original washer that came off of the plunger on the bottom, so as the pressure is exerted on it, it will indicate where we need to drill out the hole for the shaft. So I'm going to go ahead and place that in the middle of my circle approximately. And then what we're going to use to drive it in is this 10mm socket. In this case, it works out to about a 10mm socket. It's exactly the same size as the washer. So we're going to put this on here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and load this thing into the vise. Hopefully we can get it in there. Let's see if I can make it happen without dropping it. Sliding around all over the place. Let's see if we can get it in here. All right, that's about right about there. I'm using a old hotel room key on my socket so I don't scratch it all up. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna start to drive it down. All right, guys, I got a pipe for some more leverage. All right, I had to play around with it a little bit to get it. It doesn't look like I drilled the hole straight, and that's probably part of the reason why it doesn't look like it's... Okay, so this is day 2 after the little leather washer has been drying. So I'm gonna take it out of the vise here and see what it looks like. Alright, so remember yesterday I cut around the edge to get it, let's see if I can get this thing out of here. I cut around the edge to get the these little ends off. Yeah, it looks like it might have come out all right. Alright guys, let me get a drill bit. I'm going to drill this hole out in the center, which I need, and then see if we can pry this piece of leather out of here. Let me do that. Let me pause the video, go get a drill bit. Alright, the drill bit we're going to use is a 13/64, and chuck it up. I'm going to drill this thing out here. Okay, so here's what I think I'm going to do. I think what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to use this handsaw here, and I'm going to cut down. I don't want to damage the washer, that's why I don't want to stick a screwdriver in there or anything. I'm going to cut down to just before the washer, then I'm going to cut across, and I'm going to try to break this piece of wood off from around this washer. So let me start sawing a little bit. Okay, so there's part of it. So I cut down here. Now I'm going to cut across. All right, so I got down here. Now I'm going to try to hit this edge and see if I can get it to break. All right, guys. So there it is, right here. So here's my new little washer. Hopefully, it fits in the bore properly. Well, right now it's not gonna fit in there right because this edge is still sticking out. So I'm gonna use the little sanding block and knock this edge down so that it should fit into the bore like this. Let me go ahead and do that. Okay, so just very carefully, just got the shaft completely oiled. Let's try putting it back down in there. Still tight. Oh no. All right, this is what I wound up having to do. I went ahead and sanded it just a little bit more, but the problem is the leather that I used is actually too thick, but it does work. What I'm going to do is eventually over time as you use it, it will wear down, and it should be a little bit easier to pump, but it does pump. I'm going to go ahead and reassemble it, put fuel in the torch, and we'll light it up. Push this thing in a little. We'll assemble it, and I'll show you how the pump works. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put this back on the torch. We'll go ahead and put some fuel in the little bowl, and we'll light it up. Once you got it pumped up pretty good, then you're going to go ahead and light the bowl. Once the bowl is lit, you just have to give it a few minutes to warm up that torch head. And once that torch head gets warmed up enough, the fuel that's being drawn up through the wick will turn into a gas as it's coming out of the nozzle end. And then you can just open up the valve and let the fuel out through the front in a gas form. Go ahead and open the valve a little. It's a little windy out here, guys. You have it. That's running on 89 octane fuel. Alright guys, for more future videos, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Turn on your notification bells. That way you're alerted to the latest videos as I put them out. Give me a like and comment if you found this information valuable.